back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. I'm Nick Beres. This is Clint Kelly. He's a malpractice attorney here in town, and you are invited to call if you have a question or comment about maybe a case you're dealing with or a loved one, and you're wondering whether or not a doctor, a hospital, maybe did something wrong, and you're not sure. And if we have time today, I'll get into more about things that you need to ask, questions and such, that can lead you to contacting an attorney. Let's go to Pamela. Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
Good morning. How can we help you?
My sister-in-law had a shunt put in the back of her head at Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Okay. Her doctor, when the last time she went back, it was set at 140, and the doctor now has stage 4 cancer, and I'm not sure if he's still there, but he let a technician readjust her shunt. And he told the technician it was set at 140. He told him to set it at 120. He set it down to 20. And now she has turned into a schizophrenic.
And this was a shunt. Was the shunt draining something, or was that to provide a medicine to her brain?
Oh, it was for drainage.
For drainage. And so they really tightened the shunt from a 140 gap instead of to a 120 all the way down to a 20. It's like she misunderstood what the doctor said?
I guess, but I mean, they've went to Centennial, and the doctor there is the one that told them it was set at 20.
Okay, what questions do you have?
Pamela, how old is she?
What I want to know, does my brother have a case against that doctor?
Let me ask you some questions.
Answer a few questions.
I can probably help you out. How old is she, the patient?
Oh, she's my age, 55.
All right. And what was she in the hospital for originally?
Oh, Lord, I don't know. She's had this shunt for years and years.
Okay.
And over the last, say, 5 to 7 years, she has just been, her personality has completely changed.
How long ago did this happen?
Well, she went to Centennial within the last couple of months, and that's when they found that it was dropped to 20 instead of 120.
All right, but do you know when it was dropped from 120 to 20? Do you know when that happened?
It's been a few years ago. And my brother said ever since they did it, she is totally a different person.
Would this possibly be one of those exceptions in that you had something done, but it was not made aware, you weren't made aware of it until just 2 months ago, or does it have to go back to when it originally done, which might mean the statute of limitations comes into play?
Right. Well, there is what we call a 3-year statute of repose, and that's just a fancy word for saying any negligent act that occurred over 3 years ago, the doctor or hospital can't be found liable for, unless there's fraud. When she says years, I don't know if she says 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know. It sounded like what she was talking about is the change had been going on for many years. It would seem to me from what she's saying that it would be likely that she would have to have been defrauded or found incompetent. Now, if you were incompetent, the statute of limitations doesn't run on you.
You mean the nurse that adjusted this, the tech? That
what I mean is that if the patient is incompetent,
okay, I see.
The patient wouldn't know to sue because the patient is incompetent, so that might toll the statute or keep the statute from running. But it sounds to me like what she's explaining is this is something where whether the claim's time bar is going to be a pretty big issue.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's just say this happened where the adjustment was made down a year and a half ago. Okay, now, the adjustment's made, and you're not a doctor, so you figure they did the right thing. Then you go and have it checked again just within the last couple of months, and the new doctor says, hey, you know what, this was adjusted way smaller than it should have. Now, that's when they became aware of the incident. There was no reason for them to think otherwise. Wouldn't it be from just when it was discovered? It's not like they knew about it a year and a half ago and just sat on it. They didn't know about it until just last month. Does that not give them the statute of limitation just within the 2 months?
That is correct. She would have a claim then because she didn't know but 2 months ago, and the negligent act occurred within a 3-year period.
Okay.
And keep in mind, Nick, there is a we'll get too technical here, but when I talk about fraud for a claim that's over 3 years old, that could also be interpreted as a doctor was supposed to disclose something to the patient and did not do it, trying to basically conceal the negligent act. And so there's some play in there as to whether or not you can get around that 3-year statute. But she might have a claim.
Well,
there's
what
no
I'll
question
do
about
is,
it.
listen, I'll just say, Pamela, stay with us today, and we'll put up Clint's phone number and get a pen and paper, and it's certainly worth looking into anyway. If that were true, I mean, within the statute of limitations, and it was able to be proven that this doctor said, you know, I want it to be 120, and this, for whatever reason, the tech student thought he said 20. And did that. Now, that was not intentional. Would that be, what would that fall under? It's a mistake. Was it negligence?
Yes, that's negligence.
That's negligence.
If a doctor says you keep it at 120 and you do it to you turn it down to 20.
Yeah.
I mean, that's negligence. That's failure to follow the instructions of a physician. That is beneath the standard of care.
Yep.
And then the question becomes: is this patient, the 55-year-old patient, was she mentally injured because of that? Can you prove a direct correlation between the adjustment of that shunt and the patient having some neurological or mental decline that is substantial? Then you got a case.
Pamela, so stay with us. We'll get the phone number up for you. I think that's something where you need to call Clint's office and maybe get your brother involved so he can answer more specific questions about the timing of everything.
And Nick, to be clear, anytime a tech fails to follow the instructions of a physician, and that includes nurses too, that is going to be negligence 99% of the time.
Would that be on the, I mean, I'm guessing this tech then misheard, obviously. He didn't, well, who knows? I mean, maybe shouldn't this have been written down? That's what I worry about. Did the doctor say, yeah, just do it to 120? And maybe he just heard 20. I mean, is that the doctor's fault? Is it the tech's fault? I know it's someone's fault. Is it both their fault?
Sometimes it can be both. It really depends on the circumstances. My experience is usually juries find the person further down the chain responsible.
The last person in the,
right.
because the scary thing about that is, and we're talking about a shunt here, and this patient was able to survive, but let's just talk about some type of very potent medicine. They say just give them 120 milligrams, and they just give you 20, and you have a heart attack.
I had a case with a lady who had a small bowel obstruction where a doctor said give her water, and the nurse gave her Sprite, and she burped and vomited up her stomach contents and suffocated. Classic example of where a doctor gave an instruction and the nurse simply didn't follow it. And I tried to investigate. So how did this happen? What was it that would cause the nurse to do this? And she simply didn't read the chart. She just thought, hey, we always give Sprite to people to soothe their stomach, but you don't give Sprite to someone with small bowel obstruction because it can kill them.
Wow. And so the doctor meant he should have wrote water, and well, I guess, and underlined it, nothing else.
Well,
but you can't. He wrote water, and that's what he meant, water, and she gave the patient Sprite. And I can see how, listen, I'm not forgiving him, but I can see how that happens, and it's wrong, and they were damaged, and there's a case there, but I can see how that happens.
He had standing orders that you give water. Now, you know, you can walk behind a nurse everywhere she goes and make things clear, and probably in this case.
I know, but you just can't.
But you can't do it every time.
Yeah, you have to trust that they're going to follow, but that's why it's got to be to the letter of whatever it is the doctor writes. There
are so many cases that are the product of a failure to communicate. All this nurse had to do is pick up the phone and call the doc and say, look, patient has small bowel obstruction, got to give him Sprite. No, that's the end of that. But they don't do it. They just assume they know what they're doing. The nurses do a lot of times, or the techs, and they get burned.
All right, take a break on that note. When we come back, more of your phone calls, and we'll have Clint Kelly's office number. Pam, you're going to want to get that at the end of the program here. We'll have that for you, and yeah, call and check it out. You never know. There could be something there. That's the main thing. It doesn't cost you anything to call and find out. We'll be back right after this.